A destructive force spins in the Caribbean this morning. Hurricane Irma remains a Cat 5. Could this monster intensify more? Jim.
All right, according to the latest advisory, it's actually weakened a hair, and I do mean a hair. People on the southeast coast, though, and especially Florida, are boarding up, gassing up, stocking up ahead of Irma, which is likely to make landfall in the U.S., according to the NHC advisory, the latest one. But there is a shift in the models we will talk about this hour. Jen.
And it's very important to know your zone. With Irma's track still uncertain, if you were told to evacuate, would you know where to go? We'll help you get ready this morning, right here on the Weather Channel.
All right, lots to talk about this morning. Good morning, everybody. I'm meteorologist Jim Cantori alongside meteorologists Stephanie Abrams and Jen Carfagno. Hurricane Irma, a destructive and monster Category 5 storm. It's up there with the elite in the Atlantic. It is bearing down and moving through the Caribbean this morning. Barbuda, St. Martin, Anguilla, and St. Bart's have taken major hits with this, and now Florida is in its crosshairs. As Irma edges closer, Florida residents prepare to batten down the hatches. Tampa all the way over to Titusville and everywhere in between, filling up sandbags, gassing up cars, and charging up generators. As the mayor of Miami has put it, it is all hands on deck, and that is expected to continue today. All right, let's get the nuts and bolts on this thing. The latest advisory here, Steph.
Yes, at 8 a.m. So they haven't changed anything with the 8 a.m. The 11 o'clock advisory, the 8 a.m. is an intermediate advisory. The 11 a.m. advisory will be the next big advisory that they put out. So pressure is the same, the wind's the same, the movement's the same here. Pressure at 918. When this went over Barbuda, in the report I was reading, they found a pressure of 916.1 in the center of this, going over St. Bart's, St. Martin, and Anguilla right now. They are in the eye of this storm, and it has little wobbles here, so it's not a direct path. As you can see, it was kind of moving northwest here, and then it wobbled, you see, a little bit to the south. But that happens, okay? That's not like a big shift in what we are going to see here. The visible satellite imagery of this thing, oh my gosh. We have this new satellite giving us spectacular imagery of the clouds and of the eye, so we're going to zoom on in so you can you can actually see when it was a little bit farther out, these little spins. You can kind of see it. Look over here. Do you see little spins within that? How remarkable is that? Little vortices within that spinning around. So right now, we are in the eye here. This is Anguilla, and this is St. Martin, and we are going to be on the backside of this eye wall as this continues to progress eastbound. So winds, still tropical storm force winds, 350 miles across. Hurricane force winds, 100 miles across. This is the same distance as going from Naples to Fort Lauderdale. Just to give you some perspective, if this goes into South Florida, there is a chance, even if it's offshore, you're still going to get hurricane force winds. There are all sorts of advisories that are posted here. I just wanted to get the cone real quick here and talk about everything shifting east. And the reason why is that we think a trough is going to erode a high pressure and allow this to turn north a little bit sooner. And Jim's going to have more details on that situation.
All right, but right now it's starting to show up on the long-range radar out of San Juan, Puerto Rico. Obviously, as we heard about from Morgan Radford, they're preparing in Puerto Rico for a major hit with this thing. You can see it on the radar here. There's the center, just getting west, as Steph was mentioning, of St. Martin. They've taken major blows here. We've seen some pictures come in out of these areas, and obviously when we get the permission to show them to you, we will do that. But, boats destroyed, buildings destroyed. Same thing toward Barbuda. You're talking about 150 to 185 miles per hour. So these western bands, again, extending out about 45 miles from the center. That's where you get into the hurricane force winds. These are all tropical storm force winds. As you can see, we're not quite gusting to tropical storm force yet in San Juan, so we're just outside that. But this one band that's coming into Puerto Rico will probably do that. So really, the British Virgin Islands are going to take this, and the north or the southwestern eye wall will probably move over northeastern Puerto Rico. And the models have been pretty consistent in this track. What we've seen happen in the last 12 to 24 hours is a shift to the right in the models. And it's not just one or two, but a lot of the global models, even the, the baby from the Hurricane Center, the HWRF model, has shifted to the right as well. Now, the ensemble still for the European do hang some of these members back, but the shift is clear. Now we've pretty much got Florida in the center point. They even mentioned this morning on the advisory and the forecast discussion of a landfall for Florida within 96 to 120 hours. So that's what we're looking at. And look at the strength of this thing. It stays Cat 5, possibly the Saturday early morning, and then a strong Category 4, possibly coming into the Keys, weakening to a 3, potentially as it gets all the way up toward Orlando. It may not even weaken by then. So this is something we absolutely have to watch. Obviously, if it scoots east, that's a game changer. If it scoots west, that's a game changer. But the earliest arrival is going to be Friday night for those tropical storm winds. So have all your preparations done in southeast Florida it'll be juxtaposed after that. All right, Jen, over to you.
All right, well, let's talk about the islands, because that's who's feeling the brunt of it right now. In fact, yesterday, actually, ahead of it, you had tropical storm conditions here in St. Kitts and Nevis. You can see the blowing and bending palm trees, but really, overnight, the weather has gone tremendously downhill, where these areas have been feeling the full force of this Category 5 hurricane. Up next, we've got the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. And, Steph, they're starting to get into the rain and the tropical storm force conditions now.
They are. So let's talk about the timing for these. Of course, St. Martin dealing with it right now. We are in the eye of this hurricane right now in St. Martin, and then we're going to get the backside of this. And, of course, you have the waves that are propagating out. Notice we have 30-plus foot waves for a huge expanse around the center of the circulation, and waves even higher than that here. So you're going to have major impact from that, and also the surge where you get that onshore flow. So the north side of Puerto Rico, even though this is going away, the west-southwest side of some of these islands here are still going to get surge, even though our storm is starting to move away. And the size of this has a big deal to do with that surge in the wave impact. Okay, so that makes a huge difference for the fact that this is a massive storm in size. The Virgin Islands, we are about getting it here. It is headed right towards us, moving very quickly. So right now, it's going over Anguilla and St. Martin. So this is where the eye is here. Here's the U.S. Virgin Islands. There's Puerto Rico. The heaviest of rain, thankfully, is going to stay away from Puerto Rico, and we could see 3 to 5, and again, that surge up to 5 feet. Jen.
All right, well, people in Puerto Rico need to be wrapping up preparations this morning, and people in South Florida saw the terror that Harvey handed Texas, and they're taking no chances with Irma on their doorstep.
What just happened in Texas, we have to prepare. Our neighborhoods are really prone to flooding, so we're just trying to make sure that we are prepared enough to not have that happen to us.
Getting ready for a Category 5 monster starts with sandbags. We'll show other preparations at 10 minutes past the hour. Steph, free sandbags are available in Tampa and Miami Beach with proof of residency.
Yeah, I have a feeling that everyone's going to be getting those. Let's hit the headlines with Hurricane Irma. Irma making a direct hit on the Caribbean islands. Barbuda, St. Martin have been feeling the effects of this with 185-mile-per-hour winds in Barbuda. They gusted up to 155 before the gauge went out. Prime Minister of the Bahamas is calling Irma potentially one of the worst natural disasters in modern history of the nation. President Trump tweeting this morning, quote, his team is already on the ground in Florida, and mandatory evacuations begin this morning for tourists in the Florida Keys. And then, Jen, later in the day, it will be for the residents.
All right, there's only one way out of the Florida Keys, and that is by car. That is on Highway 1, the overseas highway. It's a 113-mile drive, so you need some advanced planning to get everyone out, which is why evacuations will start today. All right, the places to be aware include the northern Bahamas, also include all of Florida, and now into parts of Georgia and even South Carolina. What does it mean to be in this orange zone here? The need to be aware is follow the forecast frequently, watch for the changes, prepare to take action, and double check your supplies. Make sure your hurricane kits are ready to go. What if you're without power for days or more, right? So make sure that kind of stuff is all gathered. Also know your zone. FloridaDisaster.org will give you your evacuation zones. Know what you're in so that if evacuation orders are issued, you know if you need to leave or not. Go to your state website to determine any local evacuation routes. Jim.
Yes, if you have to leave the coast, don't go to another spot on the coast. Let's check Wednesday morning weather headlines from Irma. Obviously, the NFL thinking about moving the Dolphins-Bucs game out of Miami because of Irma. There are currently 2 options being considered: Sunday at a neutral site or playing the game later in the season in Miami. Let's find out what else is going on here, Steph.
Okay, so of course we need to talk about travel. A lot of people trying to leave Florida ahead of Irma's arrival. Hard to even get a flight. We're going to check the travel conditions at 20 past the hour. First, we're going to have a look at your local on the 8th, and we'll meet you back here in literally 1 minute.